Hello everyone, hopefully everyone can hear me easily. This is Andrew Santangelo coming to you live from the high desert here in New Mexico. you were actually witnessing some technical difficulties if you went on my Nest Cam to see what was going on. Just to let you guys know, just kind of fill you in what I think happened, and that is I've noticed sometimes I'm using this new Stella with Sky Safari. I've used the old Wi-Fi adapter that was stolen, of course. I'm using the new Wi-Fi adapter, and sometimes it the when I do align on a target, it gets the alignment out for some reason, the position information off on the Starlock system now. This wasn't a problem with the first go around, but now with this new little box, it seems to throw itself out. So before tonight's broadcast, I thought I would do a realignment of the telescope and of the LX850, and so went through my normal routine. And as I was going through that routine, it didn't seem to want to line up correctly. It didn't seem to want to work, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And then what I noticed is I forgot to take the lens cap off the Starlock system. So the whole time I did the alignment, I was doing it with the Starlock with the lens cap on, which is not a very good thing to do. And it was there. If you know with Starlock, there's two telescopes, a wide field and an 80 millimeter narrow field. The wide field had its cap off, but the narrow field did not. And so it was having a hard time doing what's called its auto centering when it did its alignment. And my suspicion is that threw everything out of whack. So it's now not behaving. I've corrected some of it, but it's not behaving as nice as I thought it would. So probably in a little bit here, I'm going to do what's called a drift align, and hopefully that will help with its alignment and centering and everything. Anyway, so enjoy the view of the moon. I've got to take care of a couple more things. You may see me out in the Nest Cam. I will be back with you here shortly, but enjoy the view of the moon. By the way, this view of the moon is coming from the 14-inch f8 ACF, and I'm actually using a focal reducer. If I didn't use the focal reducer, the moon would be twice as big, and you wouldn't see the whole area of the moon. But with the focal reducer, I'm actually able to fit the moon all into the field of view. So that's pretty cool. Anyways, I'll be back with you in a short bit. All right. How's everyone doing out there tonight? This is Andrew Santangelo coming to you live from the high desert of New Mexico. Having a little fun looking at the moon tonight, but also a little bit, it almost had me, missed me cry a little bit earlier when the alignment had been a little bit off with the telescope tonight, and I think it's because I may be related to centering on a star or something, but using the Sky Safari Pro, using its align function, but something just wasn't right. The alignment seemed to be off for some reason today, which was usually is not a problem. Actually, it was showing signs of that yesterday, and now it was showing it today. And so I thought last night more so. So I figured, well, my actually alignment wasn't too bad because my tracking was perfect, but the go-tos were getting a bit off, and I think that was because of the centering function or the align function that's with Sky Safari was conflicting with what was set up on the LX850. So in my wisdom, I thought I would realign things tonight with the LX850, and something wasn't going right tonight. Something was not going right with the align function for the and Starlock wasn't fully behaving. And then I noticed I left the lens cap on Starlock. So it was aligning on a completely dark sky, or no light, because it had a lens cap on, which messed up everything. So, of course, I'm trying to race this all in before the broadcast starts and everything like that. So, so it's I think aligned, but in a little bit. You're going to see me go outside, and you'll see the screen look different. I'm going to try and do the automatic drift align function to make things work. And by the way, I should say one thing I also did with the telescope, which is a big nit with the LX850, which is kind of a no-no, is, well, first of all, when I didn't realize the lens cap was on and there was problems with it, I got very worried something is wrong. It was not tracking right. And I thought I would just, well, turn it off and turn it back on. That sort of worked until I realized, well, it wasn't working until I realized it needed lens cap off. But the problem is, once I turned off the telescope, instead of parking it, I lost all my periodic error training, and I lost all my all the configuration settings that I had. So I have to go through the PE training and the updating again, which you'll also see me go through here in a little bit here. So so it is kind of unfortunate. So it made for more of a project than need be. So right now you're looking at the moon, the waxing gibbous moon, through the actually, it's interesting how this feed is coming through. It is coming through it starts with the telescope itself, and then going to the Canon 80D to the Primalus Labs Eagle 2 computer. So when you're seeing the moon there, you're actually seeing the desktop. I'm running Microsoft Remote Desktop on my Mac, and that Microsoft Remote Desktop is then being broadcast on the Mac to YouTube, and that's what you're seeing right now. So I'm gonna see if I can play around with this a little bit here. I'm gonna try and play around with the view, so you can see kind of how it looks. And let's see here. One thing I'm gonna try and do here is my transition. Try and make it a little bit better here, so you can see what I'm seeing. Okay, so what you're seeing, I'm gonna move this around here. Yeah. So I'm trying to fit the large screen into a small view, and it's not letting me do that. Such is life. Well, I'll try and show you what I've got going here. So right now, this is the, let me close the view for the window here for one moment. There we go. Yeah, there we go. So that's one of the windows. So the view you saw of the moon, view you saw of the moon earlier was the let's see here, was coming through the Canon camera view. The and then that's on the desktop for this. It's actually running a Windows desktop, Windows 10 desktop, the Eagle 2 computer. And let me rearrange some things here, make the view a little better here. So this, what you're seeing here is my view. Let me also move the cam here. There we go. All right. So here's my control panel. This is the view from the Microsoft Remote Desktop. So I'm running all the camera software, and I am running the power control for the telescope all off the Eagle 2 computer. And all that software, and that's the red box you see me post online earlier. And there you see is kind of like their mission control, the interface that controls the ports. And you can label the ports however you want. If you look to the left, or to the right, excuse me, you'll see there's 5 ports for power. One of them, the 12.9 volt, that's the power in to the box. The other 4 are power outs. And I'm using 2 of them. I'm using the Canon and the LX850. So I'm actually powering the telescope and the camera with those points. Now, I won't do it, but if I clicked on where you see it saying, where it says like LX850, well, that will turn off the telescope. If I click on Canon, that'll turn off the camera. To the top there, if you look carefully, you'll see those are the USB ports. Starting from the right, it's the Canon 80D. The second one's for the Canon 60DA, but that's not hooked up tonight. The third one is for the Linkstar STX3 radio. That's my satellite radio I've got hooked up to this setup here. And if you notice, it says on, and you can turn these USB ports literally on and off. If you look at the bottom, there's 3 ports. It just says name. Those are power ports for running dew heaters and things like that on your that would be hooked up to your telescope. So really, you have up to well, not only the 7 main power ports, but even the USB ports provide power too. And you can see it says Wi-Fi mode to the left, and that's access point and host. Right now I'm in host mode because it's tied into my local area network here. And so that's where I'm controlling the telescope. So let's go ahead and let's look back again at the view of the moon. And you can see, and let's bring back also the view of the LX850 cam as I bring that all in to view. And there we go. So, and by the way, eventually, when this production gets big enough, eventually what I'm going to do is probably have someone help me control the electronics, so I'm not talking and running the video application and running the telescope and running everything all at the same time. I'm finding that to be a little bit painful here. Now, the only drawback when doing the broadcasts like this is when I used to do it, I'd have my laptop outside, which is kind of painful, by the way, but there'd be the direct camera link to the broadcast, so it would be a crisper view of the moon. Now, what's happening is this whole Wi-Fi network supporting the telescope, this broadcast, my laptop, Apple TV, and everything. And so the data from the Primulus going through the Microsoft Remote Office Remote Desktop, the views of the moon are a little grainier, a little pixelated, because there's a lot of data it's trying to move across the network there. Now in just a little bit here, you'll probably see we're not going to look for the moon, look at the moon for a little bit. I'm going to try and see if I didn't screw up the amount too much when I try to do all my alignment with the lens cap on. That's a very big no-no, trying to do alignment with lens caps on, by the way, because cameras don't see things. Anyways, I'm going to try and do an automatic drift align. That may be a challenge actually tonight because the moon is pretty bright out and may wash out the field of view, but it's worth a try here. And actually I'm going to do another thing I'm going to try, and that is doing an auto rate calibration and with the mount. So you're going to see the moon disappear and stars come into the field of view, and we'll see hopefully everything goes on track here. So let me so let's see what happens here as I do this. And by the way, to do this I need to you know, the moon, I have the ISO set quite low to 150, and I have I'm using a different control for viewing. That's not good for stars. I can't, the stars will not show up through that, so on a live view. So I'm going to play around with that too with the camera in a bit. So all right, hang tight and listen to a little more music. I hope the music's experiment with some new things, and we will get this this telescope calibrated, and hopefully everything's okay. And yes, I have removed the lens cap. So again, if you look on the Nest Cam, you'll see me outside fiddling with the camera and then getting ready to do what's called an auto rate calibration. All right, stay tuned, folks. All right, you're probably wondering what happened to the moon, folks. Right now, what you see is, or you see in a moment here, the star Menkar, which is a variable star in the constellation Cetus. Actually, what I'm doing right now is pointing at the star because it's reasonably close to the zero declination. I'm trying to do what's called an automatic rate calibration. And what that does, and also a periodic error correction. And what that does, well, first of all, the periodic error correction, that is normally trained into the LX850, and I have that set. Well, unfortunately, tonight I turned off the telescope without parking it, so all that data is lost. Normally, when parking the LX850, you'll keep that data for as long as you keep parking it, which is pretty cool. But I didn't do that tonight. I was some technical things and also operator error. So that's my bad. So actually I'm doing two things. Is first of all a quick periodic error correction training, and then what I'm going to do is do an auto rate calibration. What now auto rate calibration does is once you've trained everything and it's permanently set, every night before you do an observing session, and more particularly before you take a start taking pictures, you should train or calibrate the guiders in Starlock to take into account the lighting outside. So when it's correcting, when it's trying to keep that star right in the middle, it's based on a certain brightness or darkness to the sky or conditions to the sky. So before you do every imaging session, you should always do an automatic rate calibration. And it'll figure, and then once it's done, you're set for the night. Unless, so tonight we're going to be doing auto rate calibration for the moon, because it's a certain brightness to the sky. And so it's going to base all its numbers on that. Now, once the moon sets, obviously it's going to be different sky conditions. And so I'll do another auto rate calibration. That only takes a few moments, but I'm also going to do a really quick periodic error correction. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom up on the cam, and to the right or to the left you'll see the star Menkar in the constellation Cetus. So that's what we're going to be tracking and training on if everything goes on track, if I didn't screw up the system too much. So I'll be out there. So you see the LX850 cam to the right, and to the left you'll see the star Menkar. And this should be a fairly close process. And then I'm going to go back, we'll look at the moon, and then maybe take a look at a few other objects besides the moon. So hang tight there, folks. Hey everyone, just a quick hello. Everything's going, looks like I didn't really screw it up too badly. Right now it is the Starlock system is doing periodic error correction training. Now, let me say again, once the telescope, once it's trained, as long as it's parked, that data is retained for as long as that telescope is always parked. You can turn it off, turn it on, but you have to park it before you do it. Unfortunately, tonight, while fiddling with the telescope and everything, I turned it off without parking the telescope, so that lost all that data. It doesn't happen too often, but of course, on a night like, when I'm broadcasting, of course it would happen. So right now, what it is right now training on is the star Menkar, which is actually Alpha Ceti, which is a variable star in the constellation Cetus. And so sometime being a variable star, I've got to play around with maybe playing around with the studying the variability of this star. But anyway, so that's what I'm right now training on, and the training should be done in a few moments. And then I'm going to be doing an update, which does one more train. And one thing I found with the LX850 is that when training the one thing I saw with the LX850 is if I do a train and 4 or 5 updates, then it seems to really be the periodic error seems to be down to about within easily under around 1 arc second. It's really, or even small. It's really maybe peak to peak around 2 arc seconds, 1. I want to say at best. So it's very smooth, and when I take my pictures, I can definitely tell in the raw pictures the circles are virtually round, perfectly round. So that's pretty cool. So bottom line is, it turns out if you do a initial train and several updates, it'll retain virtually a smooth periodic error correction throughout its whole for each cycle. I guess it's a little bit over 6 minutes. So right now it's doing that training. Tonight I'm only going to do one more update, and then after I'm done broadcasting, I'll do 2 more updates to the system. It doesn't really matter for tonight because I'm not going to be doing much deep sky photography or anything like that, because it's just the moon's too bright. Actually, I'm going to stand corrected. Once the moon sets, I'll have about an hour, 2 hours to do maybe 1 target, 2 DSOs that I'm working on. And actually, what I'm trying to do is I've seen all the Messier targets and all that good stuff with this telescope, but I'm actually making a collection of beautiful pictures of the Messier targets. So that's going to take a while for me to work on, because it's one thing for me and see and tag a Messier target. One of the deep sky objects, and I do a Messier marathon in March, and typically I get based on my location, because I do have a mountain blocking some of the view, I do get about 102 targets in of the 110. That's pretty good. Now what I'm hoping to do is go beyond that and take pretty pictures of each target. But to take pretty pictures of each target, well, that requires, depending on the target, up to anywhere from 30 minutes to 2.5 hours for one set of good pictures. So it takes time. And right now I'm going through all the galaxies in the constellation Virgo, which definitely takes time. So anyways, I'm going to go outside again. I'm going to check. I think the periodic error PE training should be done. And then I'll start an update. And by the way, all I have to do for periodic error correction is just point the telescope to a target near the equator, which it is right now, the constellation, or the star Menkar in the constellation Cetus. And then I just tell it train and hit a button on the Auto Star 2 controller, and then Starlock, which is at the top of the telescope. It is now collecting information and training the mount. So it's got that periodic training. For the update, all I do is hit the next button. Instead of train, I hit update, and it updates that data. And that's all I do, is just hit a button and call it good. And then for automatic rate calibration for the imaging and viewing tonight, I just hit it, well, auto rate calibrate. It does it automatically for me. So that's pretty cool. It literally automates that whole process. And that's what you're going to see me going through. And then we'll go back to the moon, look at the moon briefly. And then if I'm not mistaken, we're getting very, very close to the constellation Orion crossing over the meridian. And then we'll probably go to Orion and look at a couple of cool items there before we call it a night here. And just showing what we can do with the Canon 80D camera. By the way, one other thing, we will be able to look at some of the targets in Orion, but I will tell you, it's probably going to be washed out because, yep, we have a bright moon out. Maybe we'll go visit some other targets too. Star clusters actually look pretty cool through the camera system. So I'll be right back to see how the training is going. almost done with the auto rate calibration. Then we're going to head back to the moon for a little bit. And I'm going to see what other targets then we can go to and see what we can see live on the camera. One of these days, by the way, I'm going to be hooking up my Malin cam to get even quicker live views. Unfortunately, I need my Malin cam rig is all set up to work with the Mac, and the Prima Luce 2 Eagle 2 computers all PC Windows based. So I have to get new hardware to run the camera, new software, and what have you. So, but let's, we're almost done with the auto rate calibration, then we'll go back to the moon for a little bit, and then we'll go visit something else, some other targets up in the sky, maybe visit Orion here in a little bit. Stay tuned.
I lost my son. I must get him back.